We're here today to do a conversion of the Hawsan Mad Max sawn-off shotgun, owned by George, who's currently operating the camera. He purchased this with a view to doing this conversion before he'd even played with these shells, but we'd heard some really bad things about the stock shells that fire about 7 BBs in a line rather than what we're sort of familiar with, which is these APS style shotgun shells. So we decided to do this conversion to be able to fire these shells. As you can see, there's quite a difference in size between the two types of shell, which is why you need several different parts to make this conversion successful. Before we talk about the parts, you don't really need many tools to be able to do this. Flathead screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, and a 1.5mm Allen key. That's all you need. So the parts that you'll need are, first of all, these sleeves or shims that enable the smaller width of this shotgun shell to be able to sit in the barrel nicely and not slide down too far. Now, you also need new valve pushers or hammers, which enable correct angle engagement on the shell and the correct travel so that it can correctly initiate it. These are 3D printed in steel, or at least a metal, I believe it's steel. These are 3D printed in a sort of polymer plastic, dusty finish sort of thing that you're probably familiar with if you're familiar with 3D printing. As is this, which is an enhanced extractor, which just widens the lip on the extractor, and I'll show that in a short while, to enable to extract the shells out correctly. As a point to note, this is a Mk1 shell, for those of you who are familiar with APS shells. However, ultimately this mod is designed, well, it will be used with smart shells rather than Mk1 shells, but they should be interchangeable. It is worth also noting that this mod is obviously not compatible with Mk2 shells because they don't have any gas inside the shell themselves. Okay, so first of all we're going to disassemble the shotgun and take out the parts that are no longer going to be needed for firing the original shells, and then we're going to fit the new parts in. First of all, we need to remove this wooden piece here, which is just done by lifting this latch. Sorry, my hand's going to be in the way because it's easier for me to do it with my fingers, like that. That just lifts up and comes right off. I'm going to rotate this round, break the shotgun, and then that breaks completely round and comes apart. Inside this shotgun, don't know if you can see, are 2 inner barrels. You can also see from the front. We need to remove those to enable all of the BBs, the wadding and the cap to be able to travel through the barrel. The first step is to remove the small grub screws that are at the front end of the barrel. That's the 1.5mm hex tool, which just undoes these. Annoying. That's the last we'll need the hex driver for. Okay, once you've removed those 2 grub screws, you're going to push on the barrels inside and push them through towards the breech. Just a flathead screwdriver. Poke it in, and then they will come out the other end. There are some grommets on them. So there's one barrel, don't need that. And there's the other barrel, don't need that. At that point you also need to remove the grommets on this end. Don't know how George did this with his lack of fingernails.
Screwdriver in it then.
Oh, screwdriver in it. There we go. Okay, that is now barrel-less, so you should be able to see all the way through. Hopefully you can see the light on the table. And again from this end, as you may be able to see in the camera, there is a ledge in there which is where the sleeve will sit, that the APS shells will fit into, so they're not going to drop down the barrel. Next we're going to insert the sleeves. Now you need 2 of these, 1 for each barrel. It is worth noting that we had a couple of issues when we ordered these sleeves, and I'll quickly go through what they are. We ordered 2, which was these 2, and as you can see, it's quite a nice little sleeve. It is printed out of a plastic. It is quite dusty when you get it, but that soon sort of blows off and rubs off. There is a little shelf here, and it'll become clear what that purpose is of that once we insert it. However, the second one, you can see, had that loose, and we were worried that would affect the function of the sleeve. We put in a complaint to Shapeways. Their customer service was fantastic. They responded very quickly, apologised, had to investigate, and potentially send us out a new one. I think we had the new one come to us within a week. They are printed, I believe, in the Netherlands, and they were shipped from the Netherlands at least. However, when the new one arrived, it didn't even have that extra bit on top. It was completely missing, not just hanging off. So it's probably not a design flaw at all, but it is just a limitation of the size and the thinness of the plastic we're working with here. But in our experience, it hasn't caused us too much of an issue. So we're going to put these in now. As you can see, there's a gap here in the edge. That is where the extractor is going to move in and out. So you just need to line that up nicely with the edge there, so that it's not fouling the movement of that extractor. When we first did this mod, we put this sleeve in without this ledge on. It worked fine. We did find that this particular sleeve did have a tendency to slide in and out a little bit. This sleeve seems to be just slightly tighter fit, and this broken part, which whilst at some point we're going to repair, doesn't seem to, once it's tucked in, move much or cause any issues. So I'm just going to slide that in now. I just need to rotate it slightly. There you go. So as you can see, that's now all tucked in nicely. That's not flapping around. This is sort of chamfered to this edge here on this one, and straight for this edge here. There isn't a left and right barrel version, so this one is slightly incorrect, but it won't affect the function at all. It's just aesthetically. If you're looking very closely, you can see a difference there. The next part we're going to do is change the extractor while we're working on this part. There's 2 Phillips head screws in here and here. This is a fairly easy part, so just remove those 2 Phillips head screws. Yeah, that's done. And then just lift that part off, place it on the table. Take the old extractor. This is the new extractor. I'll give you a comparison of the 2. As you can see, with the old extractor, it's a much shallower shelf, whereas for the APS one, as they're a smaller girth shell, you need a much thicker shelf to be able to extract that shell. So I'll take the stock one, put that to one side, place the replacement one in here. It is worth noting this is printed out of plastic, but it doesn't have a particularly strenuous job and should last fine. Place that part back on top and then tighten those screws back down. Okay, that's that done. The extractor should still freely move in and out. So now finished with the front part of the shotgun, and we have moved that off to one side, just to replace the hammers. So they are 3D printed in steel. I'm actually quite impressed with these. You can, if you look at the side, or at least on, no, you can't really see the printing marks too well, but you can see where it's been 3D printed. But they're nice and strong, sturdy, and will do the job, which is probably the most strenuous task in the shotgun, which is pushing those valves forward. So for that, I'm just going to move this here. I need to work in this section here. First of all, we need to remove these 2 Phillips head screws, and then we're going to be taking this whole piece of wooden furniture off and working inside. This is the part where we didn't find any videos ourselves to do this, so hopefully this is the most useful part for you. So remove these 2 Phillips head screws. They are 2 different lengths, so when you put it back together it does matter. If I recall correctly, the one at the front of the shotgun is the longer of the 2. Or am I lying to you? No, I'm lying to you, it's the one at the rear is the longer. At this stage then, you need to pull this rearwards. The trigger guard area and this top piece will need to pull apart for the furniture to come off, but if you give it a wiggle, as you can see, it pulls apart like that, and you can pull that off rearwards. So, as you can see inside here, these are the 2 stock hammers, or valve pushers. We need to take them out and replace them with the ones adjusted for firing APS. It's quite a simple job. On the right side of the shotgun is a flathead screw. We need to remove that. When you remove that, there is the screw just goes straight through. It has 1 hammer there, a spacer, another hammer there, and it screws into this side. So I'm going to pull this out. It's all going to stay there nicely, but out comes 1 hammer, 2 hammer, and the spacer. Oh shit, I'm knocking stuff over. The 2 adjusted ones, you do need to use the springs that are on the stock hammers, so they just pull off nice and easily like that. Be careful not to stretch the spring, and then just pop on to the new one without trying to damage it. This is where the nails come in handy. Apparently George is saying if I rotate it, it makes a difference, but yeah, I guess so. Pop it off. Let's try George's method. No. Yeah, that does make a difference, and then just twist it on. And that's then there, so take the stock ones out of the way. This bit can get a little bit fiddly, but I'll try and do it so you can see. Take the screw and start sliding it in. Insert 1 of the hammers onto that screw, and then put the screw through. Check that that's correctly travelling through that window, which it is. Next is the spacer. I'm sure you can all find a slightly easier way to do that, and then slide that through, screw through just a little bit more. And then finally, the last hammer, which was easy when I wasn't having to do it so that you can see it on the camera. And that then goes through, just check the function. Yeah, that's travelling correctly. So at this stage, just need to tighten that screw down. Okay, just check that they're still, yeah, they're both still correctly pushing out. Excellent. So now we've modified everything, we just need to reassemble and function test. The difficult part about this reassembly is this here, which is the safety catch, which is operated on top by this slide, and you need to make sure that this goes back together correctly and the hammers are correctly fully forward once it's all together. So this is going to be a little bit tricky to show on camera, but we will do our best. You might find it cuts a few times, who knows. So holding it up this way will allow gravity to have those hammers fully forward, which takes one of your problems away from you. So first of all, we're going to slide on the piece of furniture onto the top, get that seated nicely, which that looks correct. And then this bottom piece, making sure that that is fully forward. With the safety catch fully forward as well, they should mate together, but we'll check that in a second. And then just slide that piece up there and make sure it's fully closed. There we go, so that's now fully closed. Before I do the screws up, I will check that. So slide to the rear, pushers are working correctly. Slide forward, the safety catch is correctly applied and is not allowing those valve pushers to go forward. So that is correct. So now what we need to do is insert these screws here. That should all be working correctly now. Okay, time to reassemble the shotgun. Take this here. I'm going to do this right. And then place this part on here, like that. So that is now all correctly reassembled. As you can see, once you break it, that extractor is pushing the shells outwards. Close it, remove safety catch, and it's correctly operating those hammers. Safety catch supplied. We'll just test that the shells load in, which they do nice and easily. It closes, locks in. Open it again, it extracts those shells. They can be easily removed and then replaced with new ones. Okay, so the function works correctly. We're now going to go outside and quickly test that the shells fire. So we're outside now, because I didn't fancy shooting these in the house. We're just going to do a firing test on this. There's a bird that's being annoying. Hopefully it'll keep quiet. So break the shotgun. Some of you may have already seen us test this in a video we've posted on the Facebook group. But just testing it again as we've just remodified it. Yeah, barrel 1 works correctly. Barrel 2 works correctly. Put the shotgun, shells come out and repeat. Okay, so conversion is now complete. It fires the APS shells very nicely. It's a hell of a lot of fun, hence why George was desperate to do this modification. I just want to put in a few closing thoughts. First of all, thank you to Blobworks, whoever this man is. We found the information through one of the many forums that designed these parts. It's enabled this modification to happen. As I say, I'll post a link to his shop on Shapeways, so he should get, when you purchase these, a little bit of the proceeds of that. So thank you to him. Also want to thank John, he's our local tech. He lent the shells while we're waiting for smart shells to arrive in the post, currently being held up by customs. And also we're just gonna quickly go over the price for this for anyone who's interested. Obviously, depending on when you're watching this, prices will vary. The shotgun at the time of purchase in December 2017 was about £220. All of the parts required for the modification, so the 2 sleeves, the 2 hammers, and the extractor, including shipping, came to about £90, give or take. So it's a little bit expensive, but it does make this a very fun shotgun. So it's not for the faint of heart. Obviously, on top of that, you're going to need to buy APS shells, which you need the smart shells or the V1 shells. There's pros and cons between the two. I suggest you make a decision on that, do a bit of reading and watch a few videos of comparisons. This is slightly outside the scope of this. And they retail, if you're buying them from Hong Kong, they retail about $195 for a pack of 25. Don't need that many. They're a lot cheaper if you buy them in a couple of packs of 4. Yeah, no, as I said, this is slightly outside the scope of this to discuss the pros and cons of smart shells versus the V1 shells. However, for anyone who's not currently operating an APS platform, the V1 shells do require a wand CO2 system to be able to fill them with the CO2, so you may need to purchase that as well as the shells. The smart shells do have the ability to fill with CO2 and green gas in the sort of traditional way. You need an adapter for a CO2 canister, but it's just doing some research on that to work out which is the best solution for yourself. That's everything. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment, link, message, whatever. George and I will do anything we can to help. This will be posted in the Cam 870 Facebook group, as it is a APS sort of based modification, and there's a lot of knowledge in there. So if there's anything you want to ask, there's other people who'll be able to chip in as well. Thank you very much for watching. Sleeves. God damn. Have you dropped your cuts? Might fit me. This is an Allen key. Very good. Shotgun, tools, shells. Done. My nails are a bit long. Should I cut my nails? Don't zoom in my nails, I'm going to try and do all the work like this. We ran out of CO2, by the way.
Did we?
Yeah, when I tried to use it, it didn't do anything, so I had to put new shells in. How'd you do this?
You got to take the bottom bit off first.
First of all, we're going to break the shotgun. No. Yeah. If I can work out how I will speed this section up on the video, so you're going to have to watch me undo a grub screw. So these just need to slide in. Oh, fuck. You need to do these before the extractor. Don't interrupt me interrupting you. Obviously, if you get the V1 shells, you will also need to get a charging wand as well. If you get the smart shells, then you need to get the adapter for a CO2 canister. This is a V2 shell, so it's fucking useless.